because issue two is the big one to talk about it with. But yeah, y'all are making the tweet. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Felicia, and that's Cluster over there.
Hello. I'm also here.
Yeah, and today we're talking about imposter syndrome. What of it has been released in now times, which encompasses issues 1 and 2. As of streaming, as of recording, issue 3 is going to be coming out all of tomorrow.
Yeah. And of course, we started up Bit Silly Book Club after issue two released, and we are planning on just covering, if not literally every Sonic comic, we're at least going to be covering everything in the main continuity of the IDW series, as that's the current ongoing Sonic comic.
Yeah. Don't need to go over that movie, comic, whatever. This
It
is this
won't
is yeah.
it won't affect any future Sonic comics, so no.
This is relevant to Sonic, the comics, but not Sonic the
Yeah,
comic.
no, that has not been in print for years.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, this is the third miniseries of the Sonic the Hedgehog ongoing comic series published by IDW.
yeah, and it introduces two bold new characters into the broader cast of the comic. Surge the Tenrec and Kit the Fennec.
They might seem a little familiar, but we'll get to that.
Yes, you will.
Um, and speaking of things we'll be getting to or not getting to, so Imposter Syndrome, this miniseries focuses on, of course, Surge and Kit, and also on Dr. Starline, who is a villain who has been in the comics for a while. If you've been reading them, you'll probably be acquainted with him. Um,
Yeah,
uh, Writer Ian Flynn and artists Mauro Fonseca and Evan Stanley, who between them all created these characters. Ian wrote them all. Evan designed two of them. Morrow designed one of them. Technically, it was back and forth. Anyway, that's kind of the point.
yeah,
There's a lot of trivia and behind-the-scenes information relating to these characters regarding their creation, their designs, and such. The artists have spoken about them multiple times. I believe Ian's also talked about the creation of the characters, and none of that is particularly relevant to the storytelling of the issue or how it interacts with other comics in the series, so we won't be going over it. But just for the record, we are aware of a lot of this trivia, if not just all of it.
Yeah,
It's a lot and it's not relevant, so we're just not going to touch on it.
we're not. And yeah, a good comic storyline can stand on its own without just bucket loads of trivia and lore and stuff. Because
Yeah.
just that's just the nature of storytelling.
If you are yourself interested, Maura Fonseca did a Twitter thread, and Evan Stanley also did a Twitter thread, and I believe a Tumblr post.
Yeah,
Actually, multiple Tumblr, because he did. Evan Stanley's talked a lot about character design because he's designed multiple characters with his comic. So if
yeah,
you're looking for character design trivia, go to Evan's Tumblr. You can find it.
yep. So yeah, I think that covers the for starters. Um, I guess just digging into the comic itself is in order now.
Yes. So as stated, this is written by Ian Flynn, longtime writer of Sonic Comics. Over 15 years now, he has been
Yeah,
writing on Sonic Comics. He got his start way back when Artsy held the license. In fact, you know,
it was
in
only a bit
2006.
over.
I know you.
It was only a bit over halfway through its lifespan when Ian came on, but he did make his presence known in that time.
Yeah. In the past 15 years, if a Sonic comic came out, there's like I think over 90% of them have been written by Ian Flynn.
Yeah, certainly.
He is, I think, maybe the person with the most writing credits on Sonic Comics at this point.
Yeah, with the second, I would assume being Carl Boulders. Um,
He was writing on Sonic for quite a while. It's between him or Ken Penders. They were both the main writers back in the
yeah,
90s and
yeah.
into the mid 2000s. But
I pulled for
I'm
Carl
not
first
gonna.
because
Yeah.
Ken went on to do the Knuckles series and
Yeah, though he also had writing credits on the Beast. Anyway,
yeah.
I don't want to crunch numbers.
No,
Point
no.
is, Ian Flynn.
His
Ian
achievements
Flynn.
in doing Sonic comics are well known and not in dispute here.
Yes. For this particular series, if you are familiar with it, you of course know that he was the only writer on the start, apart from the sort of guest writers that were present on the annuals.
Mm-hmm.
And it was only in it was
2020.
2020. I'm so bad at time. It was only in
It's
2020
okay.
that Evan Stanley joined on as a proper full writer rather than just doing annual stuff, and in fact became the lead writer on the series.
Yeah,
Though Ian Flynn has still stuck around and still very much made his presence known, a lot of what's been going on in the story for the past year has had his involvement in it.
certainly just revolving around the future events of an issue he is handling, but there is
Yeah.
some amount of collaboration going on. Not to where I think not to where Evan I think has said that they were making a collaboration out of it, just like trading notes for the overall story that Ian is going to be telling.
Which we'll have our own notes about later, but
Yeah. Sonic the Hedgehog Imposter Syndrome opens on a video blog.
yeah, so Starline is a villainous character, a scientist of some sort, I assume mostly technological. We've seen a few inventions from him, but I'm not really clear what exactly his speciality
Mm-hmm.
is. I don't think it's particularly specifically stated, but
Yeah.
he's some kind of evil inventor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as was established in the previous miniseries, Bad Guys, which also heavily featured him, we're honestly due for a miniseries that isn't about villains at some point, but I don't know. He does video logs, which are both a very convenient storytelling mechanism for him to exposit his plans to the viewer, and also very deliberately a a commentary on him having vanity.
Yes. Too true, Cluster. Too true. And I'm just gonna mention, since this is our review, and when we last read this comic, I felt like it held up better than our first read through, but there are still problems, and we are going to talk about them as this is a review. And
Yeah.
the very first two bubbles of dialogue just just take the wind out of me.
Mm.
Just just right out the gate, Operation Remaster.
Yeah.
It just smacks of a very just nerdly bullshit that I it takes me out of the comic book. I'm like, okay, gonna read the story, gonna read this story of characters in a world. Now I'm thinking about people who play video games and all the shit they talk about. And then in the next bubble, a reference is made to the Sonic cycle. And it's important to me that we not gloss over that. So if I may,
So
yeah.
I would just like to submit
Mm-hmm.
that the internet's a big place, and you, dear viewer, may often find that you have a different history and experience with pieces of media or words and phrases than other people. So you may be aware of a completely separate and totally parallel history to certain phrases, including the one we're going to talk about.
Yeah,
But we have both lived this particular history, and it's very real, and it happened. So
it did.
let's talk about the phrase "the Sonic cycle."
Which was routinely paired with an image. Um,
Yeah, way back in the
2000,
late 2000s.
late 2000s, yeah. Sonic the Black Knight had yet to come out at the time. That was just part of the
Mm.
image. But yeah. So the Sonic cycle essentially posits the just general situation of Sonic Team making and releasing games for gamers to purchase and play as an abusive cycle, is how it's positioned and all that stuff. Cause so the way it goes is it basically just mirrors an abusive cycle, like in a relationship, where Sonic Team is the abuser, who continually makes promises to change, only to then hurt the one that it, in this situation, the one it loves. The one it loves being gamers, somehow. And
Mm.
and so like in the image, there's like just generally like, here's these games. Like the first stage is when a new game comes out and it's terrible and we hate it. But then there's a new announcement that like looks promising and it might be good after all these years of two. But then there's another trailer and it has friends in it, and not just friends but new friends. Or maybe not trailer but screenshots. The
Yeah,
general gist is like,
yeah.
then the fans see friends and new friends, which is abuse on Sonic Team's part to them.
The image in question was, at best, in incredibly poor taste.
Yeah, and then and then the game comes out and it sucks. But then there's a new trailer and maybe this one will be good. The game that sucked in this case was Sonic Unleashed, according to the image, and then the game that will suck later but seems to be looking good was Sonic and the Black Knight, which was also good, and Sonic Unleashed was good too. And it's just a very reductive image that very
Yeah.
much makes a farce out of real life abuse, which real people like myself go through.
Hmm.
I've been in a cycle of abuse. It's not funny.
Yeah, and that is a particular history and baggage attached to the phrase "the Sonic cycle." That again, I actually was not even deeply involved in Sonic fandom back in 2008,
I
but I
was.
saw that image.
Hmm.
I was aware of fans saying that. Like, I wasn't even like part of Sonic fandom, and I'm still basically not, but I'm more
Hmm.
aware of it than I used to be. But I was nowhere near, like, I didn't follow Sonic fans. I didn't do Sonic fan stuff. Uh, I but I saw that image. I knew about that image, and um, like this was all stuff that was this is all stuff that I can corroborate from lived experience. I know that there are people who never saw that image, who never were part of those discussions, and I know that the phrase "the Sonic cycle" to some weirdly references people's opinions on Sonic games changing over time, which I don't know why the phrase became attached to that, but
It doesn't match up to what someone like me who's been online and talking about Sonic and talking with Sonic fans for um God,
too many years.
too many years.
I mean, it was 2008, so over a decade by now.
Certainly over a decade by now. Um but yeah, so seeing that right out the gate in the preview pages for this issue was a bit jarring for me. And as time has passed, it's gotten easier to gloss over, but I do want to take this time in our review of this now because I can't just go back to when this was new to me. I can't have the same feelings that I had back then. That we are having a review well after this came out in November, so and this is it's going to reflect that. But I do want to just bring up. I don't like this. It makes me
Yeah.
upset. It makes me feel disrespected, and I don't like it. Thankfully, most of the dialogue in this book doesn't bring those feelings to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think we've covered just the baggage that we immediately open on here.
It was panel 1, dialogue bubble 2, so
Yeah, let's. Starline
we
outlines what generally happens in every Sonic thing in a very superficial level.
yeah, so basically Starline is upset that a hero and villain dynamic is happening where Eggman is the villain, Sonic is the hero. They fight, and like you know, games and stories and comics have happened over the years.
Yeah,
And he doesn't like that because he thinks Eggman should be winning, and he's not because he's bad at it, which has basically been Starline's driving force since uh, a little bit before the zombie apocalypse happened.
yeah, yeah.
From about the time he tried to explode Sonic with a bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so for a while, for like 2 years, I've been trying to like get down to like, okay, but what's the deal with Starline? Like, what's the real like deal with him? And like, I don't think he's all that interesting as a villain. Like, I think this comic is trying to make him finally seem like a threat because he's been pretty ineffectual up to this point. But casting him in shadows and making only his eyes appear and glow it isn't doing it for me.
Yeah, yeah. Only his shades, but yeah, like yeah. This first page proves that if you remove all the distinguishing factors of every attempt, then everything can look like the same thing happens over and over again.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I feel like the miniseries is not done yet, but like given the history of Starline and just the general trajectory of his character, I feel like we're either going to be proving him wrong, or we're just going to do that thing where we gloss over his criticisms of the nature of reality. One or the other, but
but
we're not
moving
supposed to
on.
agree with
Yeah,
him,
yeah.
but he's a pompous twit.
with a really shitty logo.
It looks like toothpaste.
Fucking Aquafresh, 5 stars.
It like is that supposed to look bad? I don't know. I never know with Starline like okay, but am I supposed to not take this part seriously, or is this part where I'm supposed to take him seriously? Am I ever supposed to take him seriously? It's like I don't know. I never quite know if I'm supposed to be feeling like he's no threat because he'll just bumble his way into foiling himself every time. It's just how I feel about him.
Yeah. But step one in Operation Remaster will be to remove Dr. Eggman from play.
Yeah, because
And,
well, so like
oh, hold on a moment. Technical difficulties.
we didn't know what the problem was, but we could fix that problem. Yeah, if we knew that that was the problem, we could have fixed it. But yeah, let us know when we're back. Yeah, I know. I
And we're back. So, yeah, comic book. It's happening.
the basic thrust of Starline's character, starting from bad guys, basically has been that he believes that he can see all of the flaws of Dr. Eggman, and unlike Eggman, he won't fall prey to them, and then he proceeds to fall prey to all of the things he just said he won't. Like, he says all the mistakes Eggman makes, and then he makes those mistakes. Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's not particularly deep. It's almost funny, but it's, it's not comedically timed. It just seems to be like, I guess we're doing this. I don't know. It's,
Yeah.
like I said, the character is not working for me.
Yeah.
At least so far.
So thankfully, we're given 2 new characters to decide how we feel about in the
Yeah,
following
but
page.
right. You mentioned step one is to remove Eggman from play. I assume
Yeah.
to then put Starline. I assume Starline is planning to supplant Eggman. He doesn't
Yes.
specifically say it, but it's implied.
It's implied.
And step two is to replace the heroes who are standing in the way of progress.
Yeah.
Uh, and speaking of replacing the heroes,
Mm-hmm.
these 2 new characters.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have our Sonic ripoff, Surge.
Yeah. Starline has made his own Sonic because Sonic has attitude and style and he's cool. So we have an electric punk speedster.
And a reference to an enemy from Sonic 3. Oh, Sonic 3.
He's got a little axe. Well, it's a big axe. So.
And then action happens, fighting happens. Kit saves Surge's butt.
Yeah, because as I mentioned, we have Surge the Tenrec, who is a speedster. She also has lightning powers, and then we have Kit the Fennec, or Kit Tsunami, because he's the Tails, so I guess he has to have a name that he is technically his full legal name, but then also everyone just calls him by a different name, so he just gets called Kit.
Yeah.
Because it's like, because he's the Tails to. It is
Yeah.
specifically stated he is modeled after Tails.
Yes.
Though, like, it's basically the case of like, here's my cool, stylish hero, and a sidekick. He
Yes.
he didn't seem to put all that much thought into Kit based on how few words Kit gets for his introduction.
Yeah.
One dialogue bubble or narration bubble.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But
And overall, Kit's character has kind of just been the sidekick.
mm-hmm.
Um, the focus is definitely on Surge more so.
Definitely. And we see in the next page Surge racing to the finish and making it through at the end of the field test without Kit.
Yeah, but only thanks to Kit's help also,
Yes.
because we have to establish that Surge very much gets in over her head and overestimates her abilities,
Yes.
as I guess any good cocky rival needs to.
Mm-hmm. And Starline points out this lack of camaraderie and teamwork. And then Surge gets really heated. And then Starline uses his Hypno Glove.
Oh, his hypnotic glove powers!
And then Kit's like, what the fuck? And then Starline uses Hypno Glove on Kit.
Yeah, so basically, we're introduced to the fact that his, it's not specifically stated, but it's very obvious because it is mentioned repeatedly in this issue that he has enhanced them,
Mm-hmm.
very clearly cybernetically because he's hardly a geneticist, and
Mm-hmm. Mm.
and he mentions that he put an inbuilt weakness into them for his hypno glove, which is why he's able to just kind of brute force.
Yeah.
Like, he's very obviously doing a very short-sighted job of like just, oh, I'll just paper over all the problems with hypnosis.
Yep.
That can't go badly. It
And
goes badly.
it does. It does.
Like, it's
When you're
he's so bad at his job.
he's terrible. But when you when you when you're reading this in guided view and you distinctly recall Starline having an overpowered hypno glove in Bad Guys, which was not the plan at all with the hypno glove.
Yeah.
In Bad Guys #1, as Evan Stanley later stated, it was specifically not supposed to be that powerful because then you run into Starline being overpowered.
Yeah, it was the way it was sewn in Bad Guys #1 was ridiculous, and I'm glad that basically it's basically in the form of heavy-handed retcons, but like, I'm glad that the status quo is being established that it is not that strong, even though literal evidence of the previous story would disagree with that assessment, but
Also, there was a very ableist way of enforcing this retcon in Zeddy Hunt when he used it on Zamam.
Zamam, yeah. We are not fans of Zeddy Hunt remotely. Probably not going to bring it up too much because it.
But yeah, this is the latest chapter in Starline talking about the Hypno Glove and trying to just quietly nudge the reader into knowing that it's not as powerful as it was in Bad Guys #1.
Yeah. This one is a lot more tasteful.
Yeah, I wish we could have just had this one.
Yeah.
And not the other one. But Starline, after they've been brainwashed, after they've been put to sleep, they wake up. He gives them he lies. He gives them a very shallow explanation of why they passed out, and then we move right on to the Forest Ridge campgrounds, which we saw in the first part of Trial by Fire.
And the second and third even.
Yeah.
This is our first of two different tie-ins to the main series, and
Yeah.
I presume there will be a third tie-in to the main series for issue 49, but that is not out yet, and it hasn't happened yet in the first two issues of Imposter Syndrome. I just feel like... So, we didn't mention it, but emblazoned right on the cover of this, and it's there on screen right now, is issue 50 is coming, because, of course,
Yeah.
the comic is building up to issue 50, and this miniseries feels like the most important thing, so I guess that's why they had to emblazon it with. By the way, this is leading into the main series, and it's unique to main series. We will see how that goes, but so there are tie-ins between the main series comics, which are all being written up to 49 by Evan Stanley, and this miniseries by Ian Flynn, leading up to issue 50, which will also be Ian Flynn. And there are some issues with the way that these tie-ins are constructed. And if you saw our review of issue 48, we talked about the second one already there, but this is the tie-in to the Trial by Fire three-parter.
Yeah, featuring bags of leaves and kindling.
So, in this version of events, to present the version shown in Imposter Syndrome, Kit drags bags of dry leaves and branches around. Surge snaps her fingers to make a tiny spark and light them on fire, and then does like the move from Sonic Heroes that all the Speed characters had, where they spin around and make a tornado to make the fire go big and foosy.
Yes.
There's even a foos, actually, sound effect.
Yeah.
In Trial by Fire, we never specifically see the moment that the blaze started, but in the third and final issue, we very dramatically cut to a tree that has been split by obviously a bolt of lightning. If you know anything about trees and forest fires, that's how they get started sometimes.
Yeah.
Which is just better.
Yeah, it even ties more into like the metal virus, because like, you know, all these trees, they didn't get moisture, they didn't get any of that shit.
Yeah.
So like they're very dry and very susceptible to being burnt.
Like this feels like it's kind of babying you through how they might have started a fire, when like I think it just would have been better to just number one, if Surge can make a big lightning bolt, or at least emulate the effect of one, I think that would be a more impressive thing to show her doing, rather than lighting a small pile of twigs on fire.
Yeah.
And number two is that a lightning strike hitting a tree is actually a real thing that can cause a forest fire, and Trial by Fire had an environmentalist theme regarding forest fires, and...
Yeah.
You know, like...
God, I wish we were reviewing that right now. Ah!
Yeah. And something that more emulated a natural disaster, you would have tied in better with that. And I understand that, this is the Ian Flynn story, this is not Evan's story, this is not Trial by Fire, but I don't know, it speaks to a lack of cohesiveness, and when you're deliberately tying in, it bugs me when it looks like we have basically two separate versions of events. Because the actions taken by Surge and Kid here do not lead to a split tree.
Yeah.
And it's basically, I don't like that disconnect.
Yeah.
I wish that whatever communication was had between Evan Stanley and Flynn, it was a bit clearer, maybe. Because this is, as someone who really, really liked Trial by Fire, also, this issue came out before Trial by Fire finished, meaning that this was sewn to readers who were reading chronologically as the way the fire was started, and it was only after this issue came out that we saw the much, in my opinion, better showcase of the split tree.
Yeah. It just felt like being pulled in two different directions, honestly. But then we cut to Central City days later, where as Starlight narrates, he needs to assess their finesse, and their first real mission must be clandestine. So you're gonna try and sow chaos and not get caught. And there's this line, and we're like half an hour in here, and
This
we're
might
not
be a
even
long one.
halfway. We're not even halfway through the first issue that we're covering. But I just gotta talk about this, y'all. I just gotta talk about this. So Zeddy Hunt. It opens on talking about how like Sonic hasn't faced Eggman in a while. After the last issue where he faced Eggman.
Yeah, so to be clear, in the test run arc, Sonic and Eggman faced off inside of a virtual world.
Yeah.
And then in the beginning of Zeddy Hunt, only the first issue is the only time Eggman appears in that arc, and the last time he's appeared in the comic in general, they are facing off in person.
Mm.
And maybe you could argue it's a reference to the fact that they weren't in person since
Issue 32, I guess.
the part where it was a party and he was crashing it.
Yeah, issue 32.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still felt like it was implying like a time skip, and then
or at least just the general passage. Oh, yeah, because it was like it was one issue later and it was weird. Anyway.
and 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 then Tropic Fire happened, where we have Tangle talking about Whisper only just getting to Restoration HQ,
which implies that Zeddy Hunt, where Whisper is, had just occurred.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, Whisper is in that story, so it implies that Trial by Fire happens like right after Zeddy Hunt.
Yeah.
Which is seemingly an amount of time removed from the metal virus. And in fact, in Trial by Fire, it's mentioned that, because I think it was because the plants were metal during the winter.
Yes.
The plants were metal during the winter because time passed, but
and
there's an amount of passage of time in the comic that's unclear by the comic itself. But
and then we have Serge here saying, "Didn't the Zombots tear the city apart not too long ago?" And I'm so tired.
I'm just not sure how much time has passed.
And
like, if you aren't paying too much attention, you probably won't notice, but we're reviewing it, so we're trying to pay attention, and we notice how, like, I don't know, the fact that the time is so nebulous and vague just makes every reference to it that is seemingly incongruous more annoying, because it's like, we're not keeping to a timetable here. We're like,
yeah,
it's not like specific years are passing. It's Sonic, so it's like no one's getting older or anything.
Yeah.
You know?
And then we have, Sir, because Kit says, about the people of Central City, I think they just want to be happy. Serge says, sucks to be them, because I aim to misbehave. And it just feels very, very shallow. Just dialogue-wise. Then there's some very detailed, like, felt like wiki bait when we were first reading it.
Kit can use his hydrocoil tails, just so you know that the things that come out of him are called hydrocoil tails.
Yeah.
It's just like kind of bland expository dialogue, but like he's also like in his dialogue like being like, "Oh, I could help," and Serge is basically dismissing that.
Yeah, and saying, "You have fun with that. I'ma go fast."
And then Kit looks down, disheartened, and so again, we were talking about Trial by Fire and how I wasn't quite pleased with how the like tie-in went there.
Yeah.
So this was another tie-in.
Mm-hmm.
With this is connected to issue 48, which was a one-off issue with the Chaotix, and they're investigating the chaos that Kit and Serge put the town in, sneakily in heavy air quotes.
Mm-hmm.
Moving so fast that no one sees you isn't technically sneaky. I mean, like, yeah, the Flash also did that in Central City a lot in his comics, but like
back before these issues, earlier in the
back in
past
the
of the Sonic's world.
in the 60s. But like,
Hmm.
um, you know, uh, so in that comic, the Chaotix, that comic came out after this one
In
again, and
February,
yes, it
and
was
this was in
the
November. God, God.
yeah. So in that issue, they go down into the sewers and they find that there are a lot of um, basically cut marks in the various wires, and that would imply that
Yeah.
I guess Kit used his hydrocoil tails to slice through some wires.
Which is a different thing from manipulate.
Yeah, the dialogue doesn't quite match up with the evidence, but also we are never shown that Kit takes any action. Across the next full page, we see Surge rocket through town, making a massive electromagnetic surge, like a big EM pulse, it looks like,
Yeah.
and just ruins. And it's very obvious that something is going on, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if Surge tries to be a hero, people might connect. Oh, hey, there was a real fast green thing with a bunch of lightning, and here's a real fast green alleged hero with a bunch of lightning. Hey! But anyway, again,
I
not
feel like
stealthy.
I feel like if Kit's actions were going to be the ones to get referenced, we should have maybe been shown that. I don't
Yeah,
know.
well, with how disheartened Kit was, I assumed that the point of the scene was that Kit doesn't do anything and Surge handles it solo. But in issue 48, we see the after effects. We are told about the after effects of what Surge does, and then we see the after effects directly of what Kit apparently was supposed to have done. But again, like, it's just like,
It's just not very satisfying as a reader when you're being told that these things are crossing over and then not actually being able to take away any knowledge. Really, like
yeah,
I
and
don't feel rewarded here.
if I don't want to think, I don't want to think it's on purpose, because if it's on purpose, I think it's bad. Um, like, and if this scene at the end of this page where like the traffic lights are all green is meant to reference Kit going into the sewers and manipulating sewer wiring to somehow do that, it doesn't come across, because
Mm-hmm.
I just assumed that the EM pulse from Surge made things go all wacky.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Like, that's all I felt I had to assume. But,
Yeah, and then we have a few miles away in Emerald Town, Starline remarking on the Tails house that this comic didn't need but is now having just to make fun of it.
yeah, like we've seen the this is the
Sonic Battle.
Sonic. I get confused sometimes because Sonic Adventure 2 Battle was
Mm-hmm.
existed, and that was also
Yeah.
called Battle.
Yeah, Sonic Battle Adventure 2, as they say.
So the Sonic Battle House, of course, looks like Tails' face, like those mystery dungeon houses, and just like those mystery dungeon houses, it's awful. I hate it. I hate Face House.
Me too.
And so Starline makes a reference to, oh, he takes after Eggman, because Eggman also puts his face on things.
Then there's some speculation about what Tails might know about Surgeon Kit through Bell, which
Yeah.
I don't think is based on anything that's coming to fruition.
Uh, Not yet. We know from solicits that issue 49 will have Tails and Bell and things, but I don't think Tails is actually like catching on to anything.
Yeah, he's just kind
Um,
of focusing on this whole Badnik reprogramming thing.
yeah, but Starline is concerned because in at the finale of Zeddy Hunt, the only plot point in that actually mattered is that Starline kidnapped Belle, lovely new character, and
Mm-hmm.
basically stole her programming, um, because Eggman created her while he had amnesia. It was a whole thing.
In this
Comics
rendition
just
of
don't
the
know
scene,
history.
in this rendition of the scene, Starline just has this very excited "Yes, yes!" look, while Belle's just kind of bored and sad,
Yeah,
which is
this
not
scene.
how it went.
Yeah, this scene omits the part where like her the top of her head was opened up to show her brain, which is of course robotic.
Yeah.
She's a robot. To be clear, I guess.
Yeah.
made of wood. A neat concept. Evan Stanley character. Love
Mm-hmm.
her. But yeah, she's sort of tied into all this because, for reasons that will come up later.
Yeah. And then Starlight tries to break into the small boy's home. It's very hard. And then, but Surge and Kid are back from doing the thing, and she's loudly announcing how she did it.
Yeah,
And
they've proved that they can stealthily, allegedly do stealth.
yes,
So now they're going to scream about how they did it so stealthily.
no one will ever know. Surge 2020, 2020.
It was 2021 at the
Oh
time.
my god. I got the OBS thing wrong. No. Oh, I fucked up. I fucked up.
You
I'm
can
so
change it
right.
real quick.
I'm sorry, readers. I'm sorry, viewers. I'm sorry, all of you. I'm sorry. Here,
Oh.
it's better now. I made it better. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
There. Never happened. Never a
It
problem.
never happened. I'm sorry.
Starline orders Kit to try and, like, weasel his water in, but it's airtight. And airtight also means watertight for those of you who haven't gone to science class lately.
Surge is very ticked off and very just anxious to get some recognition and praise from Starline, and Starline is completely oblivious until Surge acts out, and which gets the attention of Starline, who calls them back to base.
I do just want to point out a line that immediately bugged me. Actually, I think it was on my on a second. But anyway, this scene starts with Starline remarking on how Tails has a house shaped like his own face and being like, "Oh my, this is a thing," and then later is disgruntled because looks like he learned from the outbreak and upgraded, referring to the fact that Tails' house was besieged by zombots during the Metal Virus storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Which implies that Starline already had knowledge of the house, so I don't know why he was surprised at its fate. I guess just so that we can make fun of the fact that it's a face house. We didn't have to have face house.
We didn't. We don't accomplish anything here. It's just face house.
It's really just showing that Starline is worried that Tails might be. I guess this is here in case you haven't read Zeddy Hunt, so that you can know that he stole the code and he's used it to do something to Surge and Kit.
God, if I knew the one plot point from Zeddy Hunt was gonna get covered by a miniseries, I wouldn't have fucking bought a fucking issue. But
Also, I guess just to point out, I'm pretty sure Starline insistently calls Kit Kitsunami.
Yeah.
Which is a thing he does.
Yep.
Back at base, which is apparently Starline renamed Egg Base Sigma, which I hate that name, it sucks, to Starline Base Sigma, which isn't better.
No, it's not. And we have these two headlines.
These are our other. These are basically our callbacks to our tie-ins to the main series.
Yeah. We have issue 48 and issue 47.
Yeah, so we've got heroes save campers from wildfire.
Yeah!
So it's all in bold. And we see Amy's smiling face.
She's a little like, oh wow, yeah, we sure did that. It was exhausting.
Yeah, she's a little sweat dropping.
Having a picture taken of me. I just wanted to have a relaxing time.
So much for my vacation.
And then we have career criminals assault Central City,
which is clearly a tabloid rag, I guess, because it is never established in 48 who did it.
Yeah.
Because they actually did get away with it without being caught. The Chaotix get sidetracked by other villains, but they learned that those villains weren't responsible.
So there wouldn't be anything pinning them to it.
Yeah, so I don't know, I feel like maybe the headline should have been like mystery something at Central City would have been a more appropriate. It would have...
Yeah.
Like, And like as Surge states, they didn't get caught,
Mm-hmm.
which was the point. And but I don't know why it's not just like I don't know. It's an oh right. I guess we didn't go over it actually.
Oh
Why they
yeah.
were setting a fire?
Okay, let's go back. Let's go back,
Okay,
everybody.
okay.
We're
So
like
remember,
51 minutes in. Let's get back to the setup here.
so Starline, as part of his testing, his step zero, I guess, of his plan, make sure his new toys work. Uh, he sends them to kill Amy Rose and make it look like an accident.
Yeah,
Because if they just killed her, Sonic would be pissed off.
but if
Yeah,
it's a tragic loss,
then Sonic would be demoralized. So I guess step one of the plan is to replace Eggman. Step two of the plan is to replace Sonic, which is why step zero of the plan is to kill Amy Rose and demoralize Sonic.
multitasking.
I don't know.
It just doesn't really scan well for our reading experience.
I think it's just kind of like a sloppy tie-in to Trial by Fire because that was a separate, isolated story that Evan Stanley had come up with, and
Mm-hmm.
like he talks actually there's a post note at the end of Trial by Fire where Evan Stanley talks about her motivations for writing it. It's right there in the comic. It's very nice, and like it's completely isolated the kernel, the concept of that story from everything else around it.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just I don't know. I guess it's just like because this story is being stapled onto Trial by Fire, and Trial by Fire is kind of being in the middle of the road to issue 50, that it just doesn't quite link up. I don't know.
Mm.
It's just it's not satisfying.
It isn't. But since they've done this test, they did well. So and Surge is all amped because they did well. It's finally time.
Yeah. Also, Starline is defensive because Surge does not like that the plan was just to set a fire. So you just wanted to kill Amy directly, I guess.
Yeah.
But Starline just like like a close call isn't better or worse than Eggman's track record. Even though he's supposed to, keeps priding himself on, oh, he's better than Eggman. Well, I mean, Eggman never did better than that. So
Yeah.
his character continues to be boast he's better than Eggman, fail in the same way he says Eggman does.
But it's time for the final test, and Surge is so tired of tests.
Yeah, we've seen 3 tests, and it is implied that there were many more.
Yeah, which he might not remember because of the hypnosis. But yeah. Starline insists that Surge can't just go and destroy Sonic because they've got a plan and they need to follow it, or else it won't work.
Step 1 is to safely remove Dr. Eggman from play. And they can only do that. Once they're sure they can strip him of his support, and he has a whole thing. Basically, he has an override code,
Mm-hmm.
which, he's hacked into Eggman stuff before in Bad Guys. That's how he took over this base he's in.
Yeah.
So he's just gonna do that, but more.
Right.
I guess computers is his specialty? Does he have a specialty?
I don't fucking know.
I think it'd be all a bit more coherent if he had like a thing he was specialty in.
But then what follows is a scene demonstrating Surge reaching a boiling point. Because she's been here, she's been getting tested, getting all these verifications of her abilities when she feels quite strongly that she can just do things on her own, and so she just snaps at Kit, who on his part advises caution when she just is very adamant that they should just go and do things right now. And then there's some rather abusive words coming from Surge to Kit, and
Yeah.
Kit hides his face in his big ol' ears.
Mhm.
And then there's then Surge just explains that she's not a brainy type. She just hits things until they don't move anymore, and it's a really edgy. But then Starline just tries to make her walk through how she would even go about killing Sonic right now, like right now immediately.
Because Sonic has friends.
He does.
He's got Tails. There's Tangle and Whisper might be there.
Yeah.
Amy is there. Like,
And Surge kind of just brushes off all that with just a yeah, I'd take care of it. Kit would watch my back if I didn't. So
yeah, Kit could totally take on Tails and Amy and Whisper and Tangle probably.
And there's this really just kind of exhausting fucking line of dialogue where Surge says, "Don't patronize me. I'll drown you with your own tails." Which sounds like the kind of thing that would get cut out of a story after the very edgy penciler thought of it. Then it leads to just.
It leads to the point of the scene, essentially.
Yeah, just Surge asking in frustration, "Why do you even want to help me?" And Kit responds,
Carefully.
"I don't know." And then Surge begins to question why she wants this, why she wants any of this. And
yeah, she hasn't met Sonic. Well, she doesn't think she's met Sonic.
And then Surge tries to reassure her, like
Kit.
Kit, yeah.
Yeah, Kit asks if she still wants to destroy Sonic. Which...
Surge says, "Yeah, but why?" And it asks if Kit wants to destroy Sonic, and Kit just says...
He replies that he wants whatever Surge wants.
And Surge asks why, to which Kit replies, he doesn't know.
With a very distraught expression on his face. And then comes hypnotism again. And, like, this whole scene, up to this point, we'll get to... It goes on a bit after, but... this whole, like, bit with the questioning and the one... It's basically, like...
It's the highlight of the whole miniseries so far.
I mean, yeah, it's... I mean, this is an emotionally resonant scene that, on our first read-through, where we were the lowest on this comic, honestly feeling, and I think it works. I think, like, I think this is a good job to set up the characters and where they are, and not necessarily what they want, but what they have been forced to want, and, like, how, when they are breaking through their programming, like, how that feels to them.
Yeah, and then immediately smash cutting to Starline just very much not caring. Just not seeing them as people, and yeah.
God, what an evil villain. I don't think he's a good villain. I'm still not one on the character. I don't think it's working. Yeah. Honestly, if he gets phased out of the comic after this and we just keep Surge and Kit and they go, like, not quite solo but duo and they just do their own thing, I'd be happy. I don't need any more Starline. We have other villains. We could get new villains. We still have Eggman too, like...
Yeah.
But, can we just have Eggman being the villain again after this arc?
That'd be great. But, so Starline tries to just hypno them back to sleep. Then Surge is not quite asleep. And, then Starline just brute forces more hypnotism. And it works. Then...
he also... He has a little bit of, I guess... This is foreshadowing, maybe, where he says, I thought keeping things simple would make things easier. Perhaps we could have a bit of backstory to shore up their emotional... And then he gets interrupted by a very angry Surge, who's about to pummel his face in.
Yeah. And then he pauses to reflect after he's verified that Surge is out cold. Um, and he reflects on how hypnotic control being resisted is troublesome, but that he's gotten like way too invested in them.
Yeah, he's invested time and resources and just like, his whole plan is centered around this, and like he's been doing activities at this point like he'd probably get found out. Um,
Yeah,
like he's appeared in front of the heroes and kidnapped Belle and kidnapped Tails and Ruse, and like he's been doing stuff. So if I assume if he doesn't follow through with his plan on schedule, his plan's probably not going to work, like logistically speaking.
yeah,
I mean, it's not going to work anyway because
it's not.
none of his plans have ever worked. This plan isn't working. He's actively failing at keeping his creations under control. In a way that's like, it's very obvious that it's not gonna work out for him. He's just
Yeah. Then as soon as they come to, he pours on the theatrics and makes like he's their doting father figure, who and it's worth noting that neither one of them seem very like they seem very shocked by this.
yeah. It seems that the main reason they ever go along with him is just that the confusion of being repeatedly hypnotized, it just makes them generally suggestible, and every time they get out of line, well, Surge gets out of line, he just zaps them again, and then they're confused again. And this is clearly not sustainable. Like, number one, they're building up an immunity, but also just all it takes is one time when Surge punches too fast for him to raise his glove,
Yep.
and the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
It's
a bit
very
of a
clear.
very real possibility given that she's a speedster.
Yeah, it's almost like he didn't. Maybe he's not as great as planning as he believes himself to be. Again, his whole character. He says he's so good and won't fall for. He won't make this mistake.
At the very bottom of the page where he's like pretending to care about them. There's this front facing, just kind of ominously shadowed drawing of him that just looks terrible. Like there's that stripe in his hair, in his locks, like
in his little toothpaste hair.
Yeah, and like it just does not go well with like the ink shadows. It just doesn't.
Yeah, because like the way that it goes, it's like, I don't know. I don't think you're supposed to ominously shadow him like that. Maybe just stick to the face for that. I mean, his hair sometimes is more behind. You don't have to draw it necessarily in front of his eye. And like, if you just maybe put it more out of the way and de-emphasize it, like you can do that with art. You can just like cheat a bit. Anyway, the very next drawing of him is better.
Much better, yeah. And it covers him just lying about the events that had transpired just moments before.
You see, Serge, you were saying you weren't saying it was duck season. You were saying it was rabbit season.
Yeah. And Serge asks if that sounds right to Kit, and Kit responds that he is hungry for wabbits. So he is a fennec, but yeah, like
and Starline goes right into the exact diet, the exact clearly rehearsed, like, the first step is to safely remove Dr. Eggman from play. We can only do that once we're certain we can strip him of support. Like, the exact same lines as before, because he's doing his plan, and his briefing, and his thing, and like...
So, reading it again this time made the whole issue feel like it was a little better.
Yeah. Also, we have the benefit of having read issue 2 at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and so far, we'll get to issue 2 in a moment, but
Mm-hmm.
so far it's feeling fairly cohesive, if not elegant. It's fairly heavy-handed. Um, so,
Mm-hmm.
so for Starline in particular, his whole character is that he is an abuser,
Yeah.
particularly to the way that he acts towards certain kids. Yeah, all of what he's doing, aside from the hypno glove aspect of it, is basically like really obvious and archetypal, basically, abuser tactics, where it's like he'll be harsh on them, oh, but then very nice, and like the carrot and stick alternating, and like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very clear in this comic in particular that you are not supposed to like him. I was not sure leading up to this comic whether you were supposed to root for him because he was being painted as kind of a sympathetic figure for some reason in Bad Guys, though he was also being conned at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
like part of that was just someone else manipulating him and buttering him up.
Yeah.
Which almost worked for me, but there were various issues, and we're not reviewing that series at the moment.
Or ever, in all likelihood.
Yeah, there are a lot of new comics to review. They come out every month, so.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's very clear to me. It was very clear to me by this issue that's like, okay, we're not supposed to like him. We're supposed to dislike him,
Yeah.
and he's a bad man,
Mm-hmm.
which I knew, and I disliked him that he was a bad man from his debut, which we'll probably get into in issue 2 a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the first issue.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, I think did I give this a 3 stars or a 4 stars when I reviewed? Because I
You
did
gave it
an
a. I
actual.
think you gave it a 4 stars, and I gave it a 3 stars.
Yeah, which is so. I'm not terribly a fan of Ian Flynn's writing overall. I don't like his writing voice much.
Mm-hmm.
We have objected and had problems with several pieces of dialogue individually, and I feel like his dialogue is often his weakest part
Yeah.
in stories. I just don't feel like it works.
Mm-hmm.
But like sometimes he will do stuff like the scene we were praising, the best part of the series so far, where it feels emotionally resonant and it does feel like it works. And like, I wish he did more of this. I wish he did more character moments where it doesn't feel like he does do character moments. And like, this is not the best character work I've ever seen in a comic or anything.
Especially
And like
after
I said,
Evans come on.
yeah. And like I said, it's very heavy-handed. It's very obvious. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there are allegedly plot reveals. At least the comic hypes them up as such, but it's obvious from this issue everything that's been revealed in the plot so far, and we'll get into that.
Yeah. Yeah. But getting on to issue 2. If you're
Yeah,
ready for that.
yeah. I think we've basically covered issue 1.
Yeah. Any further thoughts on it are going to be covered in like just the overall estimate
Yeah,
of how things are once we finish with issue 2. Hopefully, in less than an hour. Good lord.
we had a
Um,
lot to say.
we did, and
There was also a lot of just pre this issue context to go over, so
hmm.
this was the context for issue 2. So
Here we are in issue 2, also written by Ian Flynn, drawn by Thomas Roethlisberger, and released in January, 2 months ago.
yeah, inks this time were also by Gigi Dutray. There was no there was
Penciling.
no credited inker for Thomas Roethlisberger's sections of issue 1, I believe.
Hmm.
So presumably he had done his own inks at that point, but
Yeah.
here Gigi, who I don't think has done a lot of interior. I don't think she's done interior penciling much, but
Hmm.
she's done quite a few covers.
Hmm.
So she's a name that you might be familiar with if you followed the series.
Yeah. But Yeah, well, when we get to that issue 2 of Imposter Syndrome, we open on yet another vlog from Starline, as apparently is the theme of
Yeah, it seems like every issue of this miniseries is planning to open on one of these vlogs.
certainly going by the preview pages of the next issue, which we'll be covering
Yeah,
soon.
we won't go too much into what's talked about there, just because like hasn't come out yet, and we'll talk about that soon because it's about to come out.
Yeah, so there we go.
I guess I should mention that the gimmick of his there's a gimmick with his video logs where it will always show the file
Mm-hmm.
indicator in the top left every time we're doing it. There's also like little video blurries because visual shorthand for this was a recording.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that doesn't make actual sense, but we all get why it's there.
Yeah, we do.
And the file here is 1M9-SYM-002, or ImpSim002, or Imposter Syndrome Issue 2. The file name is like a half leet speak, generally code to tell you at what point in the story it takes place in.
Might be a 5 instead of an S, also.
It might. Okay, I don't particularly like the robot font that they do.
Yeah, it's not
for
great.
robot speech, and that's also here. Like the 0 and the D look identical. I don't like it.
Mm-hmm. But
anyway,
it's like imposter syndrome.
Yeah, and like it's not hard to decode, and it will let you know what issue this log was recorded on, basically. So it's, it's fine. It is technically useful if you are wondering like where things line up. For this issue and the previous one, they are just the issue itself because they were both recorded immediately before the events of the issue. So
there we go. But tonight, Starline targets Egg Base Alpha for his final test.
It's his final test and also their first real mission, I think. I think this is the first real mission he was talking about in the first issue, but it's also the final test.
Yes. And
I don't know, maybe if he just rebranded this not as a test, but as step 1 before we can take out Sonic, the next step.
Then
maybe, maybe if he just worked on his branding a bit more, then he wouldn't have such a rambunctious teen always trying to kill him.
Yeah. But we get this look at the Kate gets brought over, and he makes a map out of his hydrocoils.
Hydrocoil tails, I think was the phrase. He has a water backpack.
Yeah. And
you can make little tentacles out of it.
It's here we learned that this is an escort mission. An escort mission? I know that from video games. I did not think this was going to be part of Operation Remaster.
And Kit is very upset also, because Serge is upset, and he's like, she should have to do an important thing, because she's the hero.
And to which
Serge... he is her baby brother, and he agrees with everything she says.
To which Serge replies, "Fuck you."
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing. But,
Also, I think this debuts a nick... I don't think she called him Drippy in the first issue.
Yeah, she didn't, but she does.
She just insistently calls him Drippy, and I don't like that nickname. I don't think it's a good nickname. Like, he's trying to talk down to him, but like, Drippy just makes me think of things.
On a surface level, it's annoying and tedious and not really clever or fun, but also it just makes me uncomfortable. I
don't like Drippy. I don't know. Something about the word Drippy just makes me think about...
Some people they're like, oh, moist, terrible. No, Drippy for me is...
Yeah, I'm fine with the word moist, but for some reason Drippy gets me, so I guess...
I don't like Drippy.
I guess I get you, moist haters. I guess I finally get you. Here's my weird word that I hate.
Yeah, just as a name, as a
Mm-hmm.
nickname. No, no.
I don't like it.
Starline lays on pretty thick, yet more just trying to convince Surge into thinking that this was her, what she wanted.
You said it was rabbit season, remember?
And then Surge is like, yeah, and no, duck
And the
season.
N no is very tiny, which makes it hard to read, but also indicates that C is whispering.
I personally found it to be effective. So props to Sean Lee, the letterer, for remembering
Yeah.
that lettering is an art.
Though I don't know if Son Lee is responsible for that robot font or if someone else is responsible. I don't know if it's like if it's your call or if you can change it. And also you're not watching this video almost certainly. But I don't like the robot font. It's also used for like computers and like
Mm,
the file name on Starline's vlogs, but
yeah,
it's not very clear. A lot of the symbols look the same, and they need a new one. It's I don't like it. It's a legitimate problem. It's just in readability.
yeah,
I remember I was misreading parts of Orbot's dialogue in Bad Guys. I think it was just because the O and the D are so similar that I couldn't tell anyway.
yeah, yeah. So Starline, Surge, and Kit go out in their merry way into Egg Base Alpha, um, and uh, and they encounter some badniks. And Kit um, suggests that they take a detour to miss them, but then Surge isn't paying attention. She's just charging forward. Now she's fucking up these badniks, fucking them up,
Yeah.
fucking them up.
Based on her facial expressions, I'm assuming she is taking umbrage against being told what to do, as she has done multiple times throughout this miniseries. She really hates it when someone tells her what to do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And like any rebellious teen, immediately does the opposite.
Yeah, and punch the head off of one of the badniks to say, "Give me an escort mission, fucking escort mission. I don't
They're
like those. I'm a gamer."
yeah, they're the blue grasshopper ones. I remember them. I think on a CD. I
Something
never
like that.
remember the name of these ones. They're not Motobugs. They're not one of the like really iconic ones. Like they're you recognize them,
But they're
but they're
so
not one of the
cute.
big ones.
They're so cute.
They are cutesy, and they have little hands, which will come up later.
Man, I
Oh, they
love the
grow
Eggman
intrigued.
Empire. Love the stuff they make. It's so great. Gosh. I hope Starline gets to work with Dr. Eggman someday and on the Eggman Empire franchise.
We'll get to it. Um, Kit is upset that they are not following the mission because he has anxiety.
Yeah,
Starline, you ruined a perfectly good fox. You gave him anxiety. That's a reference to a meme or something.
yeah.
That's what I did there.
Yeah. And
And Surge is bad at metaphors or
yeah, just a
no,
bit,
what are they called? The turns of phrase, basically.
yeah, just idioms.
Yeah, idioms. Yeah,
And
idea guys are a dime dozen, and then he's like,
I'm
it's a
sorry.
dime a dozen. Yeah.
We're gonna have to take a break real quick. There's some stuff going on here.
Do you want to go investigate or? Understood. I mean, like sometimes this noise occurs in a podcasty thing, so it seems to be quieting down.
All right, we're back. But yeah. So Surge and Kid are talking, and yeah, the, there's this reference to Sonic's theme song from Sonic Adventure. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Surge references some lyrics to it,
Yeah,
but is
so she
evil
says,
about it.
I do things my way, my own way. Um, and in a surprise turn, I didn't actually notice this reference at first because, uh, so Ian Flynn often puts references into his writing, and specifically, he often references the lyrics of Sonic songs.
Hmm.
Lyrics are often not things that anyone would say in normal conversation.
Hmm.
So, like, 99 times out of 100, it stands out like a sore thumb, and it takes me out of the comic. In this one, I didn't even notice it because it actually worked for once. And that's not even like a dig at his ability to write. It's just like, don't do it. I don't know why he keeps doing it. It doesn't work in dialogue.
But after just asserting that Surge does things her way, not Starline's way,
And poking Kit in the belly.
just that squishy belly.
Yeah, and then he holds his belly and he's like, oh, I'm like the Pillsbury Doughboy. I
Yeah,
like it when I'm poked.
yeah, yeah. Um, but after that, Surge does give in and just say like, okay, let's just do the fucking mission anyway.
Yeah.
And Kid is heartened by this because it is a change in behavior that kind of makes Surge more agreeable to Kid.
Yeah, and also it will keep her safe. And like, right, I meant to mention this for issue one, but like, so Surge has a lot of personality. She has a lot going on, and Kit's entire deal
Mm-hmm.
is that he is 100% devoted to Surge.
Yeah.
That is everything. In fact, you know, C is everything. He doesn't. He doesn't even have a loyalty to Starline.
No.
He only does what Starline wants because he believes Starline's plan will keep Surge safe. It's very clear that he was programmed with only one directive, and that's protect and Surge and do what C tells you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is, on the one hand, very one note. On the other hand, kind of compelling as like a sort of, he is a person who has been programmed and forced to be one note, and like that. Depending on where the writing might go with it, that could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And also just he's very cute. Evan Stanley really designed just such an adorable little feller.
Yeah.
And you gotta root for him. Look at him.
Look,
He's doing his
yeah,
best.
he says yes, ma'am.
He says, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, love him, love him.
I am successfully endeared by these characters.
Mm.
I will say.
I am also successfully endeared by Kit, but yeah.
Then we take a break from Surge and Kit
To
because
go to
taking a Starline's in this story, amazing.
yeah, and he encounters the Egg Cave, which is relevant to anyone who read the 2020 annual as a weird story.
Yeah, and I believe was that referenced this issue or last issue?
I think
It is referenced in one of these two issues. For those unaware, the annuals have for this series have always been anthologies, which is to say that various writers have done various short stories, and one of the stories in that annual was a story in which Starline discovers Eggman basically playing with his toys
mm-hmm.
in a room where he is ostensibly doing important planning, but he has a bunch of dolls. I mean, they're action figures basically, and he's going, yeah, I'm gonna get them. And there's a bit of a like thing where it's like he's talking about using the metal virus to turn everybody into zombots, but like the toys themselves actually look like they're roboticized, which is a thing from other canons, and
Yeah.
this is important because Starline discovers that there's a toy of himself, Starline, that is also looking roboticized.
Mm-hmm.
And then Eggman very comedically subs him out the door and is like, no more time, go away.
Knock first. And so on.
It was a fun enough kind of inoffensive story. It felt like it needed a few more pages. It just ended abruptly, but it was all right.
Yeah. It would have worked more if if it was more tying into the Zombot aesthetic, but also, and this is true, the roboticized look is much more interesting than any Zombots ever in the world.
Yeah, because they're all just one color and shiny, and then when you remind me of roboticization, it's just
Looks so much better and cooler.
it was. I remember roboticization. I watched that cartoon. Well, there were two cartoons with it in it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, man.
Anyway, we're talking about this comic.
And we're cutting back to Surgeon Kid after that one page.
Yeah. So also Starline like notices the egg cave, and he's like, I can afford a small detour because he's an Eggman fanboy.
Yeah.
As much as he is trying to tell himself he isn't.
No, I can't. I want to see the toys.
Yeah.
We head back to Surgeon Kid, and there's some arguing over whether they're gonna follow the plan or not.
Yeah, it's basically continuing the general theme.
Yeah.
Surge just wants to smash things and doesn't care if the plan goes awry because he'll just kill Eggman. Gosh.
Yeah, but then.
And there's a line where Surge is like, "What is it with you and plans?" And Kit yells, "It's what I do," but it actually kind of isn't. I'm not sure why this line is here because what he does is follow orders.
Yeah.
Starline is the one with the plans. Starline makes the plans. I guess maybe it's saying like he follows plans.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry. It just struck me as a little odd, but
yeah.
I believe this is the egg breaker
from Shadow the Hedgehog, maybe.
Yeah. I know it's from Shadow the Hedgehog. Because I fought this boss so many times. I like that game. But I'm pretty sure this was the egg breaker.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one where in the one level he says, "You know what they say, the more the merrier."
Mm-hmm.
And just will loop that line because of the way the boss AI works.
Great.
God, it gets stuck in your head. But this time it's not being piloted.
Yeah.
Though it might have been remote control before. I'm not sure. Anyway. This one's on autopilot, and it starts to engage Surge in combat. And she just...
Yeah, very excited about this. Stops caring about the tower.
Because, basically, I guess she was bored, is what we're being told. It's just like, she was misbehaving because she hates how this plan is dull. And again, maybe if Starline was more attentive, he'd be able to figure out how to manage her. But he's a terrible person who doesn't see her as a person, so...
Yeah.
Doomed to failure.
So she's excited about this battle now, and very happy about it for one page. Yeah. And then she's very tense.
Do the boring nerd stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because she's very tense. As the egg breaker, it turns out, is kind of tough.
Yeah. I did kind of skip over it, but there is a line where Surge says, "This way, I don't want you distracting the kid," which does imply some regard for Kid that you don't really see.
Yeah, it implies an amount of regard that she has been maybe hiding, maybe using bravado and cruelty to cover up, perhaps.
Yeah. You see, she hits and berates Kid because she likes him. But
anyway.
Yeah, there's this line that Surge has about how, Sonic would be running rings around this thing, and she just shouts, "You're better than him," at herself.
Mm-hmm.
Before
doing some vague action.
Gotta say, since we're reviewing this issue,
we haven't talked that much about the art, but let's talk about specifically the action art, because...
And how unclear it is.
Yeah.
I can hardly tell what's going on a lot of the time.
Yeah, so... I'll be honest, I'm not overly impressed overall with Thomas Roethlisberger's output on these issues. Some of these drawings are better than others, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of it just kind of looks off. And when it comes especially to the accent, I don't think he handles the accent well. It's very stiff. It's
Yeah.
very unclear. I don't think, like, if you sit and analyze it, you can tell what's meant to be happening. But I don't find there's a clear line of accent or like just
Yeah.
combat. Like, I've read good action comics. I mean, I've read a lot of Dragon Ball.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to talk about like comics that do a lot of action, and
Yeah.
for its action is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're gonna be doing a big fight scene, you need to make sure your action is clear. And I just don't think this issue, and this issue has a big action set piece, which we're reading right now, and I don't think it really pulls it off.
No. Cut back to Kit, who is doing some hacking.
And does it immediately.
Just very quick, very quick.
Yeah, like we're shown that he has some pressure and some anxiety about doing it quickly enough, but he does it in two panels
Yeah.
that are visible to us anyway, and then he's immediately back in the action to watch Surge basically seemingly total the egg breaker.
Yeah.
I guess. Okay, I'm looking at the art. I think she's multiply homing attacking the hand until she breaks through it, and then hits the chest, making it be hurt very bad.
Yeah, she is essentially showing the egg breaker limits.
Mm. Yeah, in this case, the limits of its hand durability,
Yes.
um, and the limits of its chest durability. Those limits are much more impressive.
Yeah. Then
Because
Kit,
Surge gets cocky.
yeah, Kit comes back by to say here to
I'm
help.
here to help.
And then Surge is like, killing the mood more like. Oh, it can't do shit to me. And then it seemingly does something that should probably kill Surge.
Yeah, I just want to talk about this bit of art where it's like
Yeah.
the egg breaker, I guess, looks at her and fires the like wrecking ball arm that it has. If you played Side of the Hedgehog, you're familiar with this wrecking ball arm. But one of its arms is a wrecking ball, for the record, big and spiky.
Yeah.
Also, it's spiky, so wrecking balls are smooth. Anyway, it's a big spiky arm, and it fires the hand off, but it isn't well done. I think maybe a different panel composition would be better.
Something
I wasn't.
like that.
It took me several seconds to just figure out what was happening here.
Yeah, it just doesn't really. Comic books are a
For
visual storytelling medium, and I don't. And it sucks when I'm having to work really hard to understand what the comic's trying to tell me.
yeah, like again, like, and here's the thing: accent is hard. I think Thomas Roethlisberger, if it is him, I don't know. Maybe I found that Ian Flynn's written stories have had not very well choreographed accent before, so maybe just Ian needs to improve his skills on, like, you know, setting up a combat scene. But no matter what's at fault here, and I'm not sure, but it's not working. Is the point?
Yeah.
For me at least,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little frustrating when the action happens because I have to just like figure it out rather than when I see action in a comic, I want it to organically flow. I want to be excited by it, and I've been excited by comics and by action in comics, but not today and not here.
Yeah.
Surge ends up being buried in a little pile of rubble under the metal spiky arm, and Kit is very concerned and yells out her name, and then we cut back to Starline in the egg cave.
And he is admiring all the fun, silly toys.
There are many references. Like, look, there's a... I forget if that one is the one called Grounder, but it's the one that looks like Grounder from
Looks like Grounder.
the cartoon, but it's the red one.
And he has this beautiful toy of Eggman, but then he sees the roboticized Starline and he squeezes the Eggman doll, makes his head
And
pop
then
off.
head pop off.
I've had that
But
happen to me
also,
with Sonic action figures.
uh,
Fucking piece of shit Jazzwares.
yeah,
But
and I have heard tell that was not an isolated incident for you. Apparently, a lot
uh,
of people had that problem with Jazzwares, and a lot of
yeah.
people are happy they do not currently have the license to make Sonic toys.
I can never trust a Sonic action figure again.
Mm.
But he takes the toy, and he's like, ha ha ha, I have learned all the errors of his ways. and I will welcome him back to my side when he understands and will rule the world together. Proving, after all of bad guys, all of the metal virus, Starline is still not over Eggman. And you might think, what's that wording? Like, and the thing is,
Yeah, so there's stuff
and we're gonna
have to.
get to that after this.
So
We'll
is
just,
that will that be just will we finish recapping comic and then get to it?
it's a big enough topic. I think we're gonna want to have everything recapped before we get into it.
All right, so we cut back to Kit, who is So I mentioned Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
How many of you viewers know what Gohan does in Dragon Ball Z? No, not Cell, Raditz. Remember when his daddy is hurt and he gets angry and headbutts Raditz? It's that scene.
Yeah, you know, the egg breaker's all ready to fuck shit up, and Kid says, "Stay away from Daddy," and
Or
then
Big Sis or whatever.
so he says, "Stay away from Daddy," and whams the robot with his superpower that he secretly has.
His tails are suddenly so big and strong, and he's filled with power, and his ears are even standing all up. Again, Dragon Ball. And he grabs the big arm, and he slams it into the egg breaker, which also breaks the chest armor. Again, what happened to Raditz?
Yeah.
And then he immediately calms down. Again, Gohan. It's a pretty easy one to go for. I guess this is a character trait of him, is that he's so protective of Surge. It's still just kind of an extension of of the rest of his character, which is Surge.
Yeah.
I don't dislike this scene, but I also don't like it. I'm just very neutral on it.
Kid finds Surge in the rubble and is surprised to find her unscathed.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
he's
then,
like, "You're not hurt at all?" And she's like, "I was."
hold that thought. Now there's the egg breaker's still there, so she fucks him up. Just
Yeah.
fucks him up in some very hard to parse action.
Yeah, she goes inside, and then there's electricity, and then she comes out the top and blows off the head part. And then she has one.
Stop. That's what you get, she says.
Yeah. And then Kit interrupts her stompy victory dance to mention that they are now surrounded by those grasshoppers I still don't remember the name of.
Yeah. And Surge is all ready to do a fight, and Kit's all ready to help Surge with a fight. And
Yeah, but then clang, 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 clang. They have hands and they are clapping.
they all
The
seem
sound
so
effect
happy
clap.
too. Look at
They're
them.
so happy. They're drawn. They're made to always be smiling, but they especially look like they're smiling today.
Yeah, that was a good panel. Oh, look at them.
They're clapping. Oh, they're so happy. And then Starling comes on.
And Surge is about
through
to say what the fuck, but then Starling's like, "Oh, mission accomplished. We did it."
He did the hacking he did, and he's talking into this microphone that has eyeballs, which I assume is a reference, but there are so many visual elements in Sonic that I couldn't place specifically eyeball microphone for you. I'm sorry.
But they make it back to the control room. Surge congratulates them. Top marks for everyone. Starline. Pardon me. What did I say?
Surge.
Oh,
Different
that
ethnic.
wasn't different. Yeah. No alarms were triggered. The plan went flawlessly.
there's egg pawns here, and I want to bring that up because I like egg pawns, and one of them has a little bow tie and is carrying tea. He's a little butler one.
Oh, that's great. And so Starline twirls around as he says, "Now we may finally begin my master plan." And in the same panel, Surge is like, "Get out of this guy," and Kid is all
thumb at him, and it's like,
and
Kid's all looking embarrassed. And
yeah.
see, he's very camp, and we're making fun of him.
Then Starline notices, "Oh, your clothes are they're all ripped up. What happened?"
And Kit's about to basically explain.
He's crying.
But we can basically see the gears turning in Surge's head, where she's frowning and seeing him, and then she decides to step in and stop Kit from explaining.
Yeah, and just kind of glosses over the whole affair, saying she was a little careless, so sue her. Kid was big help. It's all good, Doc. Surge,
Yeah.
Starline. Hey, Ryan in chat. Hi. I don't know when you came in. I was looking at the comic, but hey, we're talking about issue 2 now. We're at the very end here, rapidly approaching hour 2. Glad to have you.
I had set up my phone, but it disconnected. Oh no. Let me refresh that chat so I can make sure to view chat if more chatting happens. Hey, Ryan.
Surge noogies Starline.
Yeah, he seems to be suspicious at first, but then Surge just continues to be so good-natured and happy, and noogies him.
Which is, exactly what puts Starline's mind at ease. That, or he's just so concerned with fixing up his hair afterward.
Yeah. I mean, again, I feel like he does not see her as a person. She's not being a problem to him, so he is not seeing fit to take too much notice.
Which,
Kit, meanwhile, is immensely wide-eyed with tiny pupils because this is completely unlike anything Surge has done before.
Yeah. Just kind of performing as just the rambunctious scamp who was otherwise harmless that Starline planned for her to be, but she hasn't been.
Yeah. Also, kind of just turning Starline's own medicine on him.
Because, last issue, she was like, fucking notice me, recognition, but then now she's like, you're not gonna fucking pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Bedraggled Starline, who is probably about to take a comb to his hair, says that he's gonna oversee cleanup to ensure Dr. Eggman doesn't find any evidence before we make our move, and dismisses them. Which, I don't know, you might notice if you can't put the head back on his himself doll. He might come to his doll room and be like, "Hey, who squeezed my doll? They're very delicate.
You can't put it back on after it's popped off.
Was it you, Cubot? I told you never to come into my toy room."
And then Kit tries to protest, but Surge just hurries him out of the room and into somewhere where they can't find any cameras or any hidden mics.
It's an elevator, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And
then they get to talking.
Yeah. Kit remarks that that hit should have killed Surge, which was not apparent to me when I first read this, and I gotta say, I'm just kind of going off of, I'm taking their word for it more than anything else.
Yeah, so, okay, this might sound a bit silly, because on a level of, like, C got hit by a giant metal ball with massive spikes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sir, it should have killed her. But this is Sonic. I fought that boss. I've gotten hit by it. It cost you 10 rings. I assume she's picked up a few. In all seriousness, like, C is being depicted as a super enhanced cyborg. And, of course, she's a cyborg. They haven't specifically outlined it yet, but like, what else can enhanced mean?
Yeah,
Which is also kind of what this is about.
because
Surge insists that, because Kit is concerned that maybe they should tell the doctor so he can check her and make sure that she's okay from being squished by a big metal ball.
and Serge says he's not that kind of doctor, and we're not telling him anything.
She only says that we're not telling him
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Kit remarks that if he enhanced us, he'd know.
And then Serge reminds Kit how little they do know about Starlight and themselves, even.
I do want to point out this exchange bugs me, that where she says, enhances how? What exactly did he do? Kit responds, I don't know. And then Surge responds, I know a lot of what, but not a lot of why. And I'd just like to point out, she just asked, what did he do? And it's clumsy.
Yeah.
Because our next thought is, or next sentence is, my own thoughts aren't adding up. I know the doc is at the center of it, or the doc is the center of it. So, like, I guess we are meant to more lock onto that part and be like, she's really concerned with what's going on with her brain and wants to figure that out. But it kind of gets mussed up in, like, trying to make a mystery out of the enhancements. And I think they sort of just stuck with the brainwashing. The enhancements aren't that mysterious. It's not a good plot hook.
It's not.
But what this does lead to is that, Surge says that she needs Kit's help on this. And she says, I can count on you, right? Oh, and he's so happy. He's so happy
This
that
tired,
she's not
depressed
talking down to him.
This tired, anxious, depressed boy is the happiest we've seen him in the whole book here.
He's so pleased. He's so happy that Kit is, like, actually showing him any amount of care. And, like, I assume this is, like, the beginning of them forming a genuine bond that will survive past, like, all the reprogramming and, like, the machinations of Starline.
There will no doubt get some drama about, like, oh, do I even like you? Do I even want to be around you? Because you just paired us up. But, like,
Yeah.
We'll watch the series as it goes.
Yeah, we will keep reviewing these comics, including issue 3, coming out tomorrow. At the rate we're reviewing, it might be out before we're done reviewing, but...
But yeah, it says here in this comic from January that it'll be coming out next month. February was last month.
Yeah, so we mentioned this in the issue 48 review, but Imposter Syndrome and the main series have been alternating on months, but the cover, they always do like a reveal of one of the 3 covers, because it's a modern comic, so it has 3 covers.
Mm-hmm.
Next month, and that's been like, that's, you know, what they say at the end of every issue normally, but these comics are once every 2 months, kind of, because of the alternating, so that it's been lying for as long as they've been alternating.
Yep.
It's not next month, it's 2 months away, and we are now 2 months away, because it was...
Remember when part 1 and 2 of Trial by Fire was like in the same fucking month? I wonder if we look there. It's gonna have next month on. Oh man, I bet it does.
I don't think they've touched this format, and it's like...
Oh man.
And it's something that, like, after 2 months doesn't ultimately matter, but, like... I mean, it's been annoying me how, like, I've had to wait 2 months to get the next piece of a story. It's... Like, we reread both of these issues, in part, so that we would remember what happened in them when issue 3 comes out, and in part to do this review.
And good God, are we gonna reread these and issue 3 again when issue 4 comes out? Because it's gonna be so long, and it'll
be another 2 months.
Yep.
So we might end up rereading this entire miniseries, just to make sure that we're all in the right headspace to read it. And it's like, I read monthly comics. Like, we have been reading the Sonic the Hedgehog comic series month by month, for a long time, at least since Evan got on the book, and I think even leading up to Evan getting on the book.
Yeah, we definitely were reading issue 30 and we're being very surprised by how bad it was.
Yeah, because it was the end of 2019 that I got into the comic, and I was essentially following it, but especially once Evan was on the book, I
Yeah.
was following the comic month by month, and I wasn't having a trouble keeping up because 1 month is not all that long, and I can generally keep up. But like after 2 months, like I've been doing other things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Me
I've
too.
even been reading other comics. Maybe I've been off reading Wonder Woman, Suffer and Sappho, and all that. But like maybe I've been reading The Flash from the '60s, and enjoying the machinations of Professor Zoom,
And
Alias the
eventually
Reverse
and
Class.
eventually Clutch when he shows up in the comics once you get to that part.
A little joke.
Yeah.
And so like 2 months is a long time, and I also don't like if a comic expects you to buy 2 issues in every month to keep up with the story, and it's a lot. Like I think that like the cover price for these is pretty reasonable.
Mm-hmm. $4. Yeah.
Getting them digitally available has become more annoying ever since Comixology fused with Amazon is now pointlessly difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been looking for a better digital storefront, but like they're all
Mm-hmm.
tied up in like apps and mobile things, and it's like I just want to read it on my computer so it has a big enough screen I can read it. My phone is tiny, and even if I had a big phone, it's too small for me. I
Yeah.
want a big screen. And it's like I don't buy physical comics. I don't have a lot of room, so I can't like
Mm-hmm.
build up a physical collection personally.
Yeah.
Certainly not for like every comic every month, 2 months. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, while I don't, while I do not like the idea of needing to buy 2 issues in a month to keep up with the story, I don't think that taking a month off from the storyline in order to alternate with the main series is is good.
It's a
It
pain.
makes it difficult to follow, and it is a pain. And like I would have preferred if this entire storyline had just been in the main series at some point.
Maybe I'm just gonna throw this out there. Right where, Zeddy Hunt happened.
I would have preferred it.
Just maybe just collapse Zeddy Hunt into just you know Starling kidnaps Belle and then does his thing, and then Imposter Syndrome happens. Then Trial by Fire, maybe you just maybe, who knows? Maybe an A story and a B story, just kind of alternating, making it feel more
Hmm.
organic, just how it connects. And then
Comics have done that. Comics still do that.
yeah, and
Again, I was reading Wonder Woman, the modern
mhm.
series. They've had different B stories. Some of them very interesting and just made the comic more exciting to read to get to the B story where it's like, ooh, now it's time for, ooh, I've been reading the main plot, and now it's time for the B plot, and oh, the Amazons and all that, and it's neat.
That's all formatting stuff and just the
Yeah,
general logistics
and
of it, more so than the content of the books themselves.
yeah, and like if you're coming in later, and like if you're just like I don't know when this all gets collected into a single book you can buy,
Hmm.
it'll be easier on you. You can just read it all the way
Yeah,
through, and you won't have to deal with that.
yeah.
Like
Also, Ryan Rudnick in chat. Yeah, I also miss B stories in Sonic.
yeah, the B stories are fun. It's neat to have like you know heck multiple writers in one comic and multiple styles and like
I'd like that.
yeah
Not just
I
at the annuals, but in general.
yeah I do look forward to whatever this year's it is currently the year it is this
Yeah.
year's annual.
Hmm. Yeah.
But that is the long and the short of it. Basically, the second issue and overall the first half of this mini series basically covered most of the points we had,
Yeah.
and
I'd like to. Yeah. Hmm?
we have read the preview pages for issue 3, but we won't get into it because we are going to review issue 3 separately. So
Like in 2 days,
because
if
it comes
that.
out tomorrow and we
Yeah.
stream again on Thursday, so
Yeah.
I mean we might even
Maybe.
stream on Wednesday if we feel like it. We
Just
can
we'll
do
see
what
what
we want.
happens.
Yeah, we'll see how we feel tomorrow. But while that's our main points, we did mention earlier that there was a rather salient and large point It's always already such a long video, but there is no better time than now to talk about it because there is definitely not going to be anything, I assume, in issue 3 or 4 that is more of a this jumping off point for talking about this issue than once he's seen the error of his ways, I will welcome him back to my side and we can rule this world together. What a line of dialogue to put on this character.
Yeah. So throughout Starline's just fixation on Eggman, there's also just been an undercurrent of infatuation that the comic has not shied away from in the past, and fans have not shied away from noticing.
Yes, I suppose a history lesson is probably in order for. So who exactly is this Starline feller, and why do we seem to hate him so much?
Flashback to early on in the comic, there was we weren't seeing Eggman for a while, but we did discover a kindly old man by the name of Mr. Tinker.
Yeah.
And
Mr. Tinker, just cut through it all, is Eggman with amnesia who ends up just becoming a kindly old man living in a village, fixing up toys for children, trying to make a little, in his said theme park for children that maybe doesn't look especially safe, but I guess he's still Eggman, so he's probably built very sturdily.
Yeah.
And it was probably the highlight of the first storyline, which was the main story was like Neo Metal Sonic, like from Sonic Heroes, but again, I didn't find it terribly compelling. But I did enjoy Mr. Tinker. That was it. I had some problems with it, but it overall was something that worked. I felt, and it was something that was clear it was not going to last because that's still Eggman. And that's the main villain of the Sonic series. I'm glad that it was something that Ian was allowed to do. That he was allowed to like recontextualize Eggman into this kindly old man, and like Evan Stanley later came by and made Belle, who ties into that, and like really made it feel impactful because Belle is here and Belle is still see something that is a direct effect of him being Mr. Tinker, and like more cool stories have spawned from it, but it came to an end with the introduction of Starline,
who had Mr. Tinker kidnapped via hired help, Rough and Tumble.
Yeah.
And
comics resident two goons.
Yep. And then he proceeded to torture Mr. Tinker until Mr. Tinker snapped back into the Eggman persona.
Well, to be clear, he subjected Mr. Tinker to, I believe a number was stated, but I believe it was at least 3 sessions of electroshock torture and some amount of brainwashing with like a visor going over the head. It stylistically just shows the Eggman Empire logo. It's presumably some kind of hypnotic suggestion. And it did not work.
Should we mention a line of dialogue that kind of really just pushed the underlying thing here?
I was about to get to that.
Okay.
So I just wanted to describe like what this torture was. It was shown to be an electroshock component. It was shown to be a hypnosis component, and then of course later he would get a hypnosis glove. Subverting others' wills is just a part of his character, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was very grim. It was very much shown to be like this is a very evil man kind of thing in the moment that the first bit of torture happened. And
Starline,
right before,
before he subjects Mr. Tinker to the next session, or the first session?
The first session.
Before he does that, he just tells Mr. Tinker to lie back and think of Eggman Land. And
Now, dear viewer, dear listener, that might not mean a lot to you because I don't know. Again, it's a wide world, and I don't know what media you've personally seen, and I don't know what things you've come across. But that
mhm.
phrase is derived from, of course, lie back and think of England, which is derived from lie back, close your eyes, spread your legs, and think of England, a phrase that has somewhat debated origins, but a not debated meaning of a phrase said to a woman, whether real or fictional, it, again, doesn't quite matter, but the phrase is said to a woman for how to deal with the unwanted sexual advances of her husband. In other words, it is telling a woman to lie there and take marital rape.
Which is what Starline was telling Eggman in that scene, or Mr. Tinker in that scene.
Uh, among. There was a time when Ian Flynn listed his writing influences, one of which was apparently Shakespeare, and if true, then I have to assume he has some amount of just knowledge of English literature to some degree.
Mm.
I have to assume also just as an adult, he's older than me even. This is several hundred years old, and it's rather well known what it means.
Yes, Ryan Rudnick in chat. Starline is an abuser, and it is not worthy of scorn on your part from others to stand firm that Starline is an abuser. You are right in saying that.
Yeah, and unless you are contextlessly getting it from some internet funny man's video where they said lie back and think of X, and you have somehow never heard of the phrase, which I would find rather ridiculous on Ian Flynn's part, and even more ridiculous on the part of the editor.
Yeah.
I don't know why this was. I don't think a reference to marital rape is, even as a villain. I think that's crossing a line in a children's comic. Personally, I'm not comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does, the presence of that line metaphorically construes the torture that is being done to Mr. Tinker to try and turn him back into Eggman. It sort of metaphorically paints that act of torture, as rape.
Yeah.
And
so that's that definitely didn't endear us to Starline.
no, and also just it made everything that came after it even more uncomfortable than it would have already been.
After Mr. Tinker turned back to Eggman, there was a small point in time where they're working, where Starline and Eggman are working together on the metal virus, and things, of course, don't go quite according to plan. And there's an argument scene in that issue. Sonic interrupts their arguing by remarking, "Is the honeymoon over already?" Which is another instance of positioning them as a married couple.
Yes, after the lie back and think of Eggman land line earlier in the comic.
Mm-hmm.
All one writer.
Same writing voice going throughout this.
Same writer and all. Again, it was not until later in the comic that another writer was writing on the main series in general.
Yeah. Then in Bad Guys issue 2.
I believe it was 2, yes.
Yeah. Then we have Starline venting about how the whole metal virus thing went badly, and in ranting about Eggman tossing him aside, and Zavok says something to the effect of, "You don't need him," and Starline has quite a reaction to this.
The scene, which is, again, this is Zavok, as I mentioned, he's the character who is emotionally manipulating Starline, but he is doing so by very transparently in the dialogue, if you read it, positioning Starline as Eggman's abused ex-partner, which I find particularly gross given that Starline was the one who tortured Mr. Tinker
Yeah.
to try and mold him into becoming Eggman. It was Starline who inserted himself forcefully into Eggman's life. It's always been Starline in control
Yeah.
as much as he can be, because he's competent, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels very gross in general to cast your emotionally abusive, metaphorically rapist villain as a gay man pining for,
His abuser.
Eggman.
Yeah. And then we have this issue where he says they're gonna rule together, and then we have him twirling around, about their victory, and just so Starline is being coded through all this.
You don't say. With his side-swept hair, with his flamboyant camp personality, with his fancy red coat and his cowboy boots, you're saying that this is a coded character?
Yeah, he's coded gay, and he's also
Amazing.
coded as a rapist, as you've so eloquently laid out. And with those two things established, I would just like to say, what the fuck?
I don't. This character makes me uncomfortable. This character is gross to me. Like, there is a long history in media, in whether it's comics or especially cartoons, of coding villainous characters as gay or queer in some way, whether trans or bi
Yeah.
or just in some way deviant.
Yeah, and especially like there's definitely been a lot of like just pushy gay guy like forcing himself on the good street man like just present throughout media, and it's
And
definitely trading on
Eggman,
that
sir,
here.
is very specifically not interested in Starline and never was.
Yep.
He is very much depicted as someone who just at most tolerated Starline
Mm-hmm.
and was repeatedly annoyed by him, repeatedly didn't really want him around, and eventually tossed him away without a second thought when he became too troublesome.
Yeah.
And when you combine that with, again, everything laid out here, it paints a not great picture, and it.
And to have at the end here, Surge and Kit, the characters we're supposed to be pulling for, the characters we're supposed to sympathize with throughout all of this, the victims of Starline, pointing out his flamboyantness and making a farce out of it, laughing at it,
Mhm.
in all but literally, just so
Yeah.
people don't think I'm literally saying that they laughed at him, and then they can point out that they didn't literally laugh at him, and so everything I said was definitely wrong.
Sturds is pointing and grinning and has one eye cocked and is like clearly taking a mocking expression towards him twirling around, and it's bad. It's gross. I don't like it.
And just yeah, we're gonna have more material on this to talk about in next issue. I'm just gonna mention. It's just sorry
Yeah,
to
but
say, but we are.
it'll be at least some of it. But that'll be for next issue. We've already
Mm-hmm.
been here for
2 hours and 10 minutes. But yeah. Overall, I wanted to mention this earlier, but we got up in a Starlight discussion.
yeah.
Issue two, as compared to issue one, it doesn't have the Sonic Cycle reference. It doesn't have "I'ma go fast" or "Sucks to be them." It doesn't have like Operation Remaster, like the freshness of it. It a lot of the stuff that made Imposter Syndrome issue 1 so offensive to me is not here.
Hmm.
Or just some of it anyway. But also, issue 1 had the moment of questioning themselves, and that was effective for me.
Hmm.
And then when this issue has them question again, it doesn't feel as effective. It just happens after a very confused action scene, and it doesn't feel like it's quite as earned. It feels like they blew the scene that should have led to them investigating in the first issue.
I mean, like, so issue one's scene was ultimately like a very heavy-handed. Starline is brainwashing them, but it's clearly untenable, which I got from the first scene of him brainwashing them. But I get it.
Mm-hmm.
You're making it a bit more obvious, but it's very heavy-handed, and like here we are. The main thing we're doing here is just following up on what previous issues have set up. Mostly, Imposter Syndrome issue one set up the fact that they are questioning Starline. Here,
Yeah.
here they get away with questioning Starline without directly confronting him, and therefore without getting brainwashed, so they can actually do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
We, there was many times setting up. Starline has a chip on his shoulder about Eggman, which he still does.
Mm-hmm.
Um, eh, in general, like, a lot of what I feel about this and the previous issue is that, like, you probably could have easily combined these into one.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
don't think you would have lost a lot. There's some cute character moments
Mm-hmm.
here, which is something that it has above issue one. Is that like there's actually like a bit more like stuff between Serge and Kit. They actually do seem to be starting to form a genuine bond.
Yeah.
We'll see how that continues to turn out.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't go anywhere, then I guess I will revoke that praise because
Yeah.
it seems to be setting up them having a genuine bond. So if they don't get a genuine bond, then I'll be upset because I feel
Yeah.
like I'm being promised a genuine bond. Not quite literally promised, but
Yeah.
it
But
seems the story is gearing to that.
so with issue 1, y'all gave it a 4. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars.
Yeah.
And for this issue, I recall y'all gave this issue a 3 stars, and I gave it 2.
So this issue doesn't quite have the lows that I experienced from issue one, but it also doesn't quite have the highs. Like it's cute, but it's so it. This is what I call an in between story,
Yeah.
which is to say it is connective tissue and little else.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like those kinds of stories because I. So here's the thing: I'm a writer,
Mm-hmm.
and
Me too.
I understand writing, and I understand like I primarily work in prose fiction, though I do have a great interest in comics and visual storytelling. And like sometimes you need to accept if you're writing a novel, for example, that you might have a chapter that's mostly just there to get you to the next plot point if you can't think of anything quite more interesting, because sometimes you just don't. But there's a difference between like a dull chapter of a novel that has 50 chapters and a dull quarter of a miniseries.
Mm-hmm.
And I consider this a fairly dull quarter, partly because the mystery they're setting up in this with it says at the end, next time, the shocking truth. And
Mm-hmm.
I and a not insignificant amount of the fandom, and I don't even pay that much close attention to the fandom, knew the shocking truth before issue one came out. It was that obvious. We'll
Yeah.
get to what the shocking truth seemingly is,
Mm-hmm.
unless there's some extra shocking second special third truth or whatever when issue three does come out. It's not gonna be a surprise. It hasn't. I've read the preview pages and it seems to have a shocking truth allegedly already, and
Uh,
we'll get to it. And like that's the thing. It's like if it's setting up a mystery for Surge and Kit, then you don't need to hammer it home as much. But if it's setting up a mystery for the audience, it's just not a very good mystery.
It's not.
Because I knew what was happening before I read the first comic. I knew what was happening in August when the designs were first revealed in Evan Stanley's retailer incentive cover for issue 1.
Yeah.
You know. Speaking of the covers, I'm not a fan. We've been sewing the A covers, and
They're not very good.
I don't know why Kit on this cover, it's on screen right now. I don't know why Kit is like so sullen and suiting his water, because like that's just not very in character for how Kit actually acts in the comic. And I also, Tails is not in the comic, and Sonic was on the issue 1 cover. Sonic is not in that comic.
Let's talk about that here, and about just very baity covers.
So for a bit of a small history lesson, this is again we mentioned this is the third miniseries that this Sonic the Hedgehog comic series.
Ryan Rudnick in chat. Yeah, Evan says cover also made me intrigued by the characters. Maybe not as invested as you and certainly Cluster were, but I was intrigued.
When I saw that cover, and for a while, even though I don't think it was terribly representative of their personalities, I thought it was the best drawing we got of Surge and Kit for a while. Next issue's B cover,
yeah,
by Ricardi Curry.
Yeah,
very good artist. I wish they called him back for interiors more. I don't know if his schedule just doesn't work out for it or something, but like, get him back. He's so good. But like, he does a wonderful drawing on the B cover of next issue. And I think that's currently probably my favorite official art of them.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes as they, I presume, appear more. Their designs are very good, and from Evan Stanley's immediate cover and the whole like, sort of, there was like an internet hype from the people making it. You know, the writer, the artists, like talking up the characters a lot to get people excited.
Yeah.
And like, Riley Farmer, who had previously been assistant editor and is now simply credited as co-editor. So congrats on, I guess, moving up the chain there, yeah. Riley Farmer. Like, she put out specifically a call to action for the fandom to send in fan art so that they could fill the first issue with fan art of Surge and Kit. And like, it's a bit manufactured, but like, because no one had met the characters yet. We hadn't seen them in a comic yet. But, like, the designs are very strong, and I'm not surprised that even just on the basis of their designs, that there was interest in the characters.
Yeah.
And at least for me, like, it's held true that I am still interested in the characters, even if the writing is not... I have some issues with it, but, like...
Mm-hmm.
The previous 2 miniseries I was trying to mention... all had connecting covers.
They did.
And I think the reason they did is because the Tangle and Whisper miniseries had an absolutely gorgeous series of connecting covers by Evan Stanley, which
fucking
expertly, just brilliantly wove not only beautiful, provocative, evocative imagery, but also in each segment of the cover establishes the emotional tone of that issue each time, with things becoming darker and like more uncertain. And issue three, like, even like, you know, it somewhat symbolically, but also somewhat literally, speaks to the contents of the issue in a way that just takes my breath away. And like, for the record, Tangle Whisper, I think, is one of Ian Flynn's best stories, and I do still have criticisms of some parts of it, but it's just really good. And
that was all him.
Yeah, and Evan Stanley's gorgeous connecting cover just so perfectly encapsulated the emotional journey of that series and each individual issue that each part was for, while also being an interwoven, gorgeous tapestry when you see it all together. It was amazing. It was mind-blowing. It was breathtaking. I just have to talk so much about that issue, and I could just talk about each individual piece and how it relates to the interior. Bad Guys also had a connecting cover. Each one had a different, because there were
Multiple
five
guys of
bad
bad.
guys, one of which was a duo, and so they both appeared on the same cover, and each one had a different one, and they were all in like a bar,
Yeah.
and Rough and Tumble were breaking a table. Zavok was mildly perturbed, and Starlin was like, "Meh, I don't like it,"
And
and
Starring is like,
Mimic was
and
also
Mimic's like,
there.
yeah, I don't fucking care.
And so yeah, it was also a connecting cover. It had nothing to do with bad guys. It didn't tonally reflect it. It didn't metaphorically reflect it.
Mm-hmm.
And admittedly, it's being held to an incredibly high standard because I'm gussing over how good Tangle and Whisper's connecting covers were.
But it doesn't
But the
take too
bad,
much to be part to tie into what's actually happening in your fucking comic book for cover A.
yeah, that's the thing. This is the main cover. You're looking at the main cover, and it has nothing to do with the contents so far of the book. Tails is not here.
Tails' face house was in issue 1, but not here. There was no Tails in this.
Sonic has been mentioned, but like I guess he was sewn on
In
a
the
computer
vlog?
screen
Yeah.
in the vlog. I don't think Tails has even been sewn because they've only been sewing the hair he stole
Yeah.
from Tails. He stole hair from Tails
Creepy man.
for
Creepy
reasons. I honestly I expected, just because it's so often in media, I expected some casual eugenics talk. But so far it hasn't happened, which
Let's hope that continues, but I'm not gonna hold my breath.
I'd like. It's just so prominent in culture and media.
It's
and
not one. It's not a one writer thing. It's multiple.
It's society.
Society. Yeah, like.
God, I hate how prevalent eugenics is in just like common parlance. But that's a. And again, that's society.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so the cover A's so far for issues 1 and 2 do not represent the comic, because the cover A for issue 1 had Sonic rail grinding next to Surge in, I don't know, Robotropolis, I guess? Metropolis?
Yeah.
Some Tropolis?
Then cover. Yeah.
Issue 1's cover B is just kind of like Surge and Kit. Not great. Not a fun. I don't like it. I don't like the way Surge's mouth is drawn.
Yeah.
Kit just kind of looks intense, which again,
Not really.
when does Kit get to be on a cover
Looking anxious.
with his personality?
Yeah.
Because
And
he's
there was
never
like a.
looked intense in that way.
There
He
was a
looked angry
website
once.
exclusive. There was like a IEW website exclusive version of the cover, drawn by Ben Bates.
Ah,
Yeah, featuring Sonic and Surge very roughly racing each other, and their cheeks are pressing each other, trying to get first.
right, that one.
And then it had just Tails being weirdly antagonistic to Kit.
Who's looking like a cyborg? It's like, why are you yelling at me? And why is Tails being an asshole?
It just seems a bit odd. Tails wouldn't do that, and
Yeah.
And then, here we have issue 2.
And also for issue 1, there was a Retail and Center cover, as I mentioned. Evan Stanley.
Ryan Reddick and Chad. Ben Bates. He's not the worst. He's not the worst.
He's not my favorite artist to ever draw Sonic characters, but I've seen worse. But yeah, for issue 1, I do want to just mention Evan Stanley did a very gorgeous cover, which shows it's very ominous. It was great for like an initial reveal of like who are these mysterious new characters.
Yeah.
And it's not the main cover, so it has like Surge is like standing with her back partly to the camera, and Kit is hovering menacingly above, suspended on his tail tentacles, and there's red lightning, even though Surge's lightning isn't red, but it's very dramatic for the composition. And their eyes are glowing very much, which is a thing that happens, especially with Surge, because she uses her powers a lot. Kit used his powers a bit. Did they glow when he was angry?
I haven't pulled up the comic book. Let me get a answer.
No.
Oh.
I don't. Yeah, his eyes actually went blank when he went angry. So
yeah, so it's not actually.
Do his eyes ever glow? Because Surge's eyes are glowing all the time. But actually, yeah, I think they've actually never I don't think they've made Kit's eyes glow, even though that's supposed to be like a gimmick of both their designs, is that their eyes glow when they use their powers.
Mm-hmm.
And like Surge's eyes don't always glow, like it's clearly a sometimes for effect thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd think they'd have his eyes glow red when he got angry. No, okay, anyway. Cover A, Tails is here, but not in the comic. Um,
Cover B had a Starline with his toys.
yes, he's
Which
holding the Starline toy, and the Eggman toy, and he's glaring at the Eggman toy. And in the background, we have Surge and Kit, and they are causing general mayhem, and that's basically what happens.
It's actually covering what happened in the fucking story, which is a first for any of these covers at that point.
I mean, like, honestly, the cover B, where it's just kind of both of them, I think works fine for the first issue.
Mm-hmm.
Cover A doesn't, but like where it's just like new characters, and that's enough when you have new characters.
I
It's
guess
like,
so, yeah.
here they are, but like, and that's also the point of that issue is here's new characters.
And we have the retail incentive cover by Adam Bryce Thomas. It's like Sonic 2!
Because it's the second issue. They didn't do a Sonic 1-esque cover for first issue. And it positions Starline as their villain, which I guess he is. Will they pull the trigger on that? I don't know.
We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. That's a comic book.
That's a comic book. We have some gripes with the covers. We have some gripes with the interiors.
We have some gripes with the writing.
This one was fine. If it doesn't pick up by issue 3, I'm gonna start to get disappointed and tired. And I already am kind of disappointed and tired, but I'm really, like, after a connective tissue issue, after a connective tissue, like, piece of your story, if you don't give me a hit next, I don't know what you want from me. You know?
Yeah,
It's like...
yeah. And honestly, I'm getting a bit antsy just from this issue, like, just really feeling like it shouldn't have been a whole issue.
Yeah.
It's just the fucking Hobbit of miniseries so far, just stretching out.
But yeah, overall it was fine, but please deliver on issue 3, or...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have trouble recommending this at this point. We're 2 issues into a 3-part story, so maybe it'll pick up, or a 4-part story, sorry. Not a 3-part story.
God.
2 issues into a 4-part story, so if it picks up, then maybe I can give it a recommendation, particularly for the collected version, which will be overall a little cheaper.
Frankly,
but as current...
until we've read issue 50, I'm not going to be sure. I can't be sure if I can recommend any of this, even if it does pick up, because it's all at the beginning of every issue.
Yeah, it says issue 50 is coming.
Yeah, and to my eye anyway, that's just kind of positioning the whole miniseries as meaningless without issue 50. Also, Ryan Redneck in chat. I am also looking forward to discussing issue 3. We'll probably do so together and outside of the book club. But
yeah, we often like talk amongst ourselves and amongst with our friend Ryan about the issues off of stream, as we did for both of these issues as it came out. But
yeah, I feel like this is if this miniseries doesn't lead into something great in issue 50, which cards on the table, I don't think it will. I think it's going to.
Yeah.
I think it's going to weigh badly on the miniseries because it's tying itself so much to what's going to happen in issue 50, and if issue 50 really sucks, it's gonna just really tear to shreds anything this was building up in good faith.
This is basically at least positioning itself marketing-wise as like a big event series, and land it. Land issue 50, or this mini-series is basically worthless because that's how it works when you build up to a single event.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the nature of, like, if you are pinning your hopes on this.
Yeah.
You better make sure it works.
So yeah, we'll see y'all next time. Might be tomorrow, might be the day after. might whenever we get back having a book club meeting, after we've read issue 3 of the Sonic the Hedgehog Imposter Syndrome miniseries.
Yeah. Make sure to follow the channel if you haven't, and
Yeah.
if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like. Feel free to tell us how you felt in the comments under the video. I
Yeah.
will try to remember to check those because
Yeah.
I'm in charge of that.
Mhm.
Um, Also, don't be a dick. Like, be baseline respectful, not respectable. I don't
Mm.
care about respectability, but like,
Respectful.
yeah, like we're human beings and you're human beings, and even if we were other kinds of beings, we're living and we're alive, and everyone deserves at least a bit of decency and respect. So, um,
Let's
just
all
like,
try and talk to each other and communicate.
yeah, if you like this, great. Honestly, I'm happy that you did. Just like,
I sure
you
wish
know,
I could.
I wish I liked it more. I hope I like the next issue more. Like as it stands, I could with issue one, I could reasonably, it was a 4-star review I gave it on like Google Play, whatever, and I could reasonably like say, yeah, sure, pick that one up. With my 3-star review issue two, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth like
Yeah.
make your own judgment. If issue 3 is good, then I guess I'll retroactively recommend issue 2 as well because it will be required.
Yeah.
But that's it for now. This went on so long. Next time won't be as long.
Yeah, because it's one issue instead of 2 issues that we have so many thoughts about. Good God.
And all the baggage leading up to it, and like,
Yeah.
so let's wrap this up.
All right.
Like, comment, subscribe, and all that.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for reading these comic books with us.
Yeah.
And we'll be back next time.
Mm-hmm.
Bye everyone.
Bye bye.
Woo!